Have you ever finished braces, looked in the mirror, and thought, finally, my teeth are perfect, and then someone says, great! Now you'll need a permanent retainer. Wait, permanent. That word alone sounds mysterious, doesn't it? Today we're diving into something most people wear but almost nobody truly understands. Permanent retainer, orthodontics. Is it a tiny wire silently protecting your smile, or is it secretly doing more work than your braces ever did? Stick with us, because the truth behind this little orthodontic secret might surprise you, and it could be the reason your smile stays straight for years, or slowly drifts back when you least expect it.
Rasim, you're absolutely right to highlight that mystery. Many patients celebrate the day their braces come off, but what they don't realize is that the real long-term protection of their smile often comes from that tiny wire placed behind the teeth. Permanent retainer orthodontics is designed to quietly hold your teeth exactly where orthodontic treatment moved them. Teeth naturally want to shift over time, sometimes slowly, sometimes surprisingly fast. That little retainer works silently every day to keep everything stable. But here's the interesting part. Most people don't know when they need it, how long it should stay, or what happens if it fails.
Okay, Dr. Esma, now you've officially made me curious. If this tiny wire is doing all that behind the scenes, why don't more people talk about it? And here's the question everyone watching is probably wondering right now. Can a permanent retainer really keep your teeth straight forever, or is that just orthodontic marketing magic? You know what's interesting, Dr. Esma? I've actually heard this story from so many people. Someone finishes braces in their teens, everything looks perfect, and then 10 years later, they suddenly notice one tooth slowly twisting again. It's subtle at first, maybe just a tiny shift when they smile in photos. Then they compare an old picture and think, wait, my teeth didn't look like that before. That moment can feel frustrating, especially after all the effort braces required. So the big question is this: why do teeth try to move back even after orthodontic treatment is done?
That situation happens more often than people expect, Rasim. Teeth are not fixed like stones in concrete. They live in bone and are surrounded by ligaments that constantly adapt. After braces move teeth into new positions, those surrounding tissues still remember the old alignment. Over time, they may gently pull the teeth back. Without a stable retainer, small movements can gradually add up. Many patients only notice it years later, when a front tooth begins to overlap or spacing appears again. That is exactly why orthodontists often recommend a permanent retainer as a long-term stabilizer.
So basically, even after braces win the battle, teeth still try to stage a comeback. That makes the permanent retainer sound less like an accessory and more like a quiet bodyguard for your smile. You know, Dr. Esma, hearing this makes me think about all the people who invested years into braces, appointments, adjustments, careful brushing, the whole journey. Imagine finishing that entire process only to watch your teeth slowly drift again. That would feel like rebuilding a house and then leaving the door open during a storm. And honestly, a lot of viewers might be wondering right now whether that tiny permanent retainer is the quiet hero preventing that exact situation.
Exactly, Rasim. Think of a permanent retainer as the final safeguard of orthodontic treatment. I often see two very different outcomes in my clinic. One patient keeps their retainer and their teeth stay beautifully aligned for years. Another patient skips it or stops maintaining it, and gradually the front teeth begin to crowd again. These shifts can be small but noticeable, especially in the lower front teeth where movement happens most easily. That is why orthodontists emphasize retention so strongly.
So the real message here is simple but powerful. Braces may create the perfect smile, but the permanent retainer quietly protects it long after the braces are gone. Dr. Esma, here's something that surprises a lot of people. Many viewers probably think permanent retainers are a new orthodontic trick, but they've actually been around for decades. Yet somehow the spotlight always goes to braces or aligners, not the quiet device that keeps everything stable afterward. And I recently read that a large percentage of orthodontic relapse happens within just a few years after treatment, if teeth are not properly retained. That's wild. So even after the braces come off, the story of your smile is technically still continuing behind the scenes.
That is exactly right, Rasim. Let me share a quick example from my practice. I once treated two patients who finished orthodontic treatment around the same time. One followed the retention plan carefully, including a bonded permanent retainer. 5 years later, her smile looked almost identical to the day her braces were removed. The second patient stopped using retention protection early. Gradually, the lower front teeth started to crowd again. It wasn't dramatic overnight, but the change became visible over time.
So the lesson from that story is clear. Orthodontic treatment shapes the smile, but retention protects it for the long run. Alright, Dr. Esma, let's zoom in on the science for a second, because this is where things get really fascinating. People usually imagine teeth as fixed structures, almost like tiles in a floor. But orthodontics clearly shows that teeth are living parts of the body that respond to pressure, movement, and even time itself. So when braces move teeth into a new position, what is actually happening beneath the surface? Are the bones shifting, the ligaments adapting, or is there some hidden biological process constantly trying to pull those teeth back to their original spots?
Great question, Rasim. Orthodontic movement works through a biological process involving the periodontal ligament and surrounding bone. When braces apply gentle pressure, the bone on one side of the tooth slowly breaks down while new bone forms on the other side. This process allows the tooth to move safely through the jaw. However, after treatment ends, the surrounding fibers and tissues still hold a kind of memory of the previous alignment. Without retention, those fibers may gradually guide teeth back toward their former positions. That is precisely where a permanent retainer becomes scientifically important.
So in other words, the permanent retainer is not just a convenience, it is working alongside biology to keep the new alignment stable. Alright, Dr. Esma, now let's make this practical for our viewers. Suppose someone just finished braces or aligners and hears their orthodontist mention a permanent retainer. What actually happens next? A lot of people imagine a complicated procedure, but I have a feeling the reality might be much simpler. So if we break it down step by step, what does the process really look like from the patient's perspective?
Great point, Rasim. The process is surprisingly quick. First, after braces are removed and the teeth are perfectly aligned, the orthodontist cleans and dries the inner surfaces of the front teeth. Next, a very thin, custom-shaped wire is positioned along the backside of those teeth. Then small amounts of dental bonding material are applied to secure the wire in place. Finally, the bonding is hardened using a curing light. The entire procedure usually takes only a few minutes.
So the moment braces come off, the orthodontist quietly installs the long-term protection system for your smile. Alright, Dr. Esma, now that we know how permanent retainers are placed, let's talk about the part people rarely hear about, living with one. Because I imagine this tiny wire still needs some care. For example, if someone is brushing quickly in the morning or biting into crunchy foods, could that affect the retainer? And what are the biggest mistakes people make without even realizing it?
Excellent question, Rasim. The most important rule is hygiene. Because the retainer sits behind the teeth, fat can accumulate around the bonding points if brushing and flossing are not done carefully. I always recommend using floss threaders or specialized orthodontic floss to clean beneath the wire. Another key caution is avoiding habits that place excessive pressure on the front teeth, such as biting hard objects. Patients should also pay attention to any feeling of looseness in the wire.
So the retainer quietly protects the smile, but the patient still plays a big role in protecting the retainer.